What's up everyone, Lion Roar here, and the DVRAVPALA clan is right around the corner, so today we get a sneak peek of that. If you look in your renowned champions, you can read the text on it. It is a little complex, so I'm going to break it down today, but are we finally going to get a good warrior? Let's talk about it. But first, download Bloodline Heroes of Lithus, a mobile RPG action fighting game where you can marry your champions to create new and unique hybrids. Use the link in the description to start with some free stuff, including gold and diamonds. And I'd be honored to have you join my server so you can play alongside me. Simply click on your profile, settings, then change your server to S462. See you hopefully soon. Alright, so up to this point in Bloodline, warriors have had a hard time keeping up. So much so that the best you could expect from them is basically just to be a meat shield and soak up as much damage as possible while the rest of your more powerful damage dealers go off. But they've had such a hard time keeping up that most team comps in the meta don't even run them. They just run a bunch of really high damage dealers, even though they're relatively fragile heroes, because, well, if the damage dealers go off faster, there's no need to have a big tanky champion. But I think Bloodline's really focused on trying to put in warriors now that are actually going to have an impact on the board. I think we're going to see that with the DVRAVPALA clan. So let's take a look at the male first. I'm going to review the ult, and then I'm going to review the passives on here. So as far as the ultimate, Growling Sweep slashes enemy targets in front, sweeping them with their snake tail to inflict stun on them, dealing damage equal to 650% of the champion's strength. So we don't know how big that range is going to be in particular, but this is obviously starting out to be a CC warrior or, crowd control, inflicting stun, but dealing a huge amount of damage too. 650% is a lot. Now, of course, we're going to take a look at the base stats in a little bit, but it also kind of depends on what the strength is of this champion. But then the second part of this says scale armor gets strengthened again with the resistance chance increasing to 40% for 5 seconds. So that might just go right over your head. It kind of went right over my head the first time I read it too. But you have to understand how one of the passives works in order to understand how this works. So take note of what that just said here. We're going to take a look at this passive. Scale Reflection. The Sturdy Naga's scale armor has a 20% chance to resist damage when attacked. So that's 1 in 5 regular attacks it's going to resist. But note that the ult increased that to 40%. If the effect is triggered, the attacker takes damage equal to N% of their strength. In other words, the champion that is attacking this DVRAVPALA, this male DVRAVPALA, is going to be taking damage based on their strength. And we don't know what that N% is going to look like or how that's going to impact the board. Obviously, if DVRAVPALA gets paired up against someone on the other side who's attacking him that has really high strength and regular attack, well, that is going to be bad news for that champion. So, I'm thinking Male Gultang, which I got in the last new series of heroes that came out, and he is absolutely excellent. But this guy is definitely going to counter that effect. Same thing with Female Travaine too, any really high regular attack. But I'll tell you what, I think that's going to be really strong against really any champion that's dealing damage. The only ones I can think of that might not be so affected by that are perhaps like your female Lionstone or something like that, maybe even male Lionstone if you haven't focused on increasing their strength and having them do a lot of damage. All right, let's take a look at the other passive. Serpent Strangle pulls all enemies in front in a fan-shaped area to melee range, which is really, really cool. It inflicts taunt and reduces their strength by 50% for 3 seconds. Taunted enemies can only launch normal attacks. So what this is doing is another crowd control effect, pulling in champions who are in a certain range. We'll have to see, how big that actually is. We don't know quite yet. But it's basically stymieing them. This is a counter to female Lionstone. So while one passive is a counter to pretty much every champion that's dealing any kind of damage, this particular passive is going to control female Lionstone. So like this guy, he's a counter to pretty much every champion in the game. Now, this is of course speculation. We don't know how good he's going to be until we actually get to play with him, but I'm really excited about this, and we might not have to anymore try to pick 3 or 4 champions that are just kind of fragile, high damage dealing mage kind of things. We can actually possibly throw a warrior in the front to just stop the other team in their tracks while the rest of your big damage dealers go off as well. And I have absolutely no qualms at all about putting traits on this guy that are going to increase the strength, because he's going to deal damage too. All right, it's probably not going to be as much as your other big damage dealers, but he's going to control the crowd and he's going to be killing the opponents as you go, which is something that a lot of the warriors have had trouble with up to this point. Now, taking a look at the stats, there's a few here that matter. Of course, HP, 17 million is actually higher than probably the 2 other warriors that get used a lot right now, which is female Ugrul and female Doombringer. Now, I love female Doombringer. I think she's amazing. I think she's underrated, actually. But still doesn't make it into my main team comp. This guy's HP is a little bit higher, so he does have some more survivability. At 86,000 defense, that just adds to the survivability more. So he's a crowd control champion who is very survivable and going to deal damage. So taking a look at that strength, 359,000, about on par with female Ugrul and female Doombringer. I think this guy's excellent. I think he's going to be amazing. When I speculate about what traits I would want to put on him, I'm thinking agile and focused, which are my 2 kind of go-tos to make him go off as fast as possible. There's perhaps some other traits that can work well as far as synergies too, but I mean, I'm just thinking off the top of my head that I want to put brutal and honorable on this guy as well. There's a couple of reasons for that. So brutal, obviously, you want to increase the amount of damage that he's doing through strength. And that's actually the more debatable one, because you could maybe find another clan trait to put in place that one, but that's the one I'm going to start with. I'm also going to start with honorable because of that reduction of attack damage. For that one passive, when he's inflicting taunt, he's reducing their attack to 50%. So what the honorable is going to do is prevent even more damage from happening. So they're basically doing no damage to him, which is great. He's sucking champions in, causing them to do nothing, and he's not taking damage. He's not dying in the meantime. You can totally put this guy in a main team comp, and the rest of your team's going to light up the other team. Now, let's take a look at the female and see if she can even hold a candle to the male. It's been kind of rare in Bloodline to get a clan where both the male and female are excellent, but they did just do that with the Gultang clan, so maybe they're moving more towards that model. We don't know, though, until we look at the specials, so let's check out the ultimate first. Blinding Flurry. Inflicts a deadly curse on the furthest enemy within a certain radius. Summons 4 tails to hit the target successively, dealing total damage equal to 750% of the champion's strength. The last hit will pull the target to the champion. So what that means is, we don't know what the radius area is, but the furthest champion in that radius is going to get hit 4 times, and then on the last one be pulled closer to this DVRAVPALA, and you can actually create synergies with that. Like if you do happen to have a female Ogrul in there who spins around and deals damage to all the champions in the area, or like a female Davala whose blood pit is going to deal damage to everybody inside the blood pit, you can pair these champions together pretty well like that. The death curse will inflict silenced on the target. If the enemy target is killed by the curse, it will count as triggered. Each curse triggered permanently increases the champion's strength by 20%, which can be stacked. So this is important where you're in situations where you have a number of enemies. All right, so there's not like a ton of situations in Bloodline where this is just going to stack to an absurdly high amount. Like this isn't going to work against raids or expeditions and things like that, where you're just fighting against one enemy boss basically the whole time. But, you know, of course, when you're fighting in Valley of Conquerors or in the arena or something like that, you have a few chances for that to stack. And occasionally you get events where you just have waves of enemies where that might actually be really, really, really good. But that's a really strong effect and a lot of damage. Let's look at the passives. The champion unleashes an arcane serpent which slithers between enemies. Each jump deals damage equal to 200% of the champion's strength, inflicts stunned briefly, and steals 25% of the target's current energy. Whoa, another crowd control warrior. And that is really going to, again, stymie not just like the champion directly in front of DVRAVPALA, but like multiples, wherever this little snake is slithering to. The damage is increased by 10% with each jump, and after reaching the last target, the serpent returns to the Naga and brings back the stolen energy. All right, so we're going to have to speculate a lot on this one because we don't know how this is actually going to play out. Like, for example, is the serpent that's slithering, can it strike the same target multiple times? Does it have like a certain number of hits it's trying to do? Like, does it have 5 hits and it can hit like the same target 3 times and then hit another target and another target? Or is it, you know, 1 target per? So like if there's 3 champions remaining on the other side of the battlefield, it hits all 3, and then when it's done, it comes back. And if there's 5, it hits 5 and then comes back. Or if there's 1, it hits 1 and comes back. I don't think we really know based on this description until it comes out. But what I do know about this is it's another really great crowd control type of passive. And it's almost so good. It's acting like an ultimate, but it's like you don't even have to have full energy to have this go off, right? So you're going to be able to do this just naturally with your champion fighting, and then the ultimate's going to go off and do everything that we just talked about. So there's a lot of room here for synergies to be able to pull targets into like a Divala to keep champions from firing their specials off by stealing their energy and by dealing a lot of damage. And then the next passive is Toxic Toxin. It's a little redundant, but that's okay. The champion secretes a dangerous toxin. Whenever the champion takes damage, the attacker bleeds for 2 seconds, taking damage equal to 200% of the champion's strength, which isn't like a ton, but it's not an ultimate either. The toxin also reduces the attacker's attack speed by 30% for 5 seconds, which can stack to a max of 150%. So that's the part that I think is really exciting. The damage is just a little bit of a bonus, but reducing attack speed, especially like if you are taking this against a raid boss or in an expedition or something like that, oh my gosh, how valuable is that going to be? This is truly, truly going to control, like almost single-handedly, in a big boss like that. You're gonna have no problem in those like one boss type of situations. The secreted toxin also increases Naga's resistance against non-normal attack by 20%. So we're just gonna throw that in there too, that she's gonna be more survivable that way. Let's take a look at how that interacts with her base stats, because I think all of this is going to depend on how survivable she actually is, because the warriors really do have a problem staying alive. They tend to die quickest, and it's really the warriors that tend to soak up the most damage the longest that are the best. She has 15 million HP, which is actually kind of on par with female Ugrul and female Doombringer, and 76,000 defense, which again is kind of on par with those already. So she's not more survivable than them, except that she's got the crowd control that the others lack. She's going to be doing a lot of crowd control here, and especially if you pair her with other champions that are also doing crowd control, there's just going to be a whole lot of regular attacks on the board that, you know, without the ultimates and things like that. And then she's got 374,000 attack, which is actually a little bit higher than Ugrul and Doombringer. So there is that. She's going to be dealing more damage probably than them, at least just as far as like the regular attacks go. As far as traits that I would put on her, again, I would default to agile and focused, and I probably would just stick with what I said for the male too. I would put brutal on her, and I would put honorable on her. We're going to increase the attack, again, because so much of the specials in Bloodline rely on that, and then also honorable, so she's taking less damage. But that's what I think about the DVRAVPALA clan, both female and male. We're not going to know until they come out how good they actually are, but I'm excited about them, and I am definitely going to be summoning for them. So make sure you're subscribed, because you're going to want to see that summoning video, and then I'm going to make sure to level them as fast as I can, because I'm going to get that companion. I'm determined. I have enough summons for it. I'm going to get the companion, and I'm going to level it as fast as I can and test it out. If you enjoy videos like this, make sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification, leave me comments what you think, and I will catch you in the next one.